Hi, welcome to my craft room. I hope you've been to that clearance blitz because I have. I took advantage of that and got lots of goodies. This is from that sale and still going on. If you missed out, there's still a lot of good things there. This package of paper is called Love, and these are the different designs. Of course, we know it's two-sided. I'm going to be working with these two colors right here tonight. This will be our large and this will be our smaller heart. So let's get going on that. Because this is designer paper, I want to adhere this onto a scrap of cardstock. And let me just show you a little tip on your scraps. I recycle my gallon bags once I finish using them. I then use them to organize my scraps of cardstock, and this is just my pinks. But I'm always pulling from there and using those. Keep your stuff organized and you'll use it more readily. The glue stick just glides over the back of this. And this is a little Teflon sheet that I purchased and I quartered it, which makes it real easy, and real easy to work with, and I don't get my work surface all sticky. And it wipes right off. Okay, got that all adhered on. And I've already put my red onto a scrap of red cardstock. I'm working with the framelit dies from our Occasional Mini. I love these. They're wafer thin, very easy to work with. The blade is just on the inside of the design. I've given this just a minute to dry. You want to be sure you do that before you start cutting this out. Normally, when you're working with these, you would work with cardstock or designer paper, but with gluing these together, I've had no problems. Working with the framelits, we're going to be working with tab 2, the top of your platform, and as always, you will sandwich. There's 1 and 2, and run it through. Instead of working with my normal grungy sponge, just for you, I'm using a new sponge tonight. I love these sponges. They come in 3 in a package. I've cut that in half, and now I'm going to cut it into thirds. They go a long way, and I just take them to the kitchen sink and wash them with a little bit of dish detergent, and even though they get stained from that color does not carry through when you're using it onto another card. I'm going to be working with the DMC embroidery floss. On the left side, I have my cut edge. I'm bringing it up over my right, meeting it at the base. And now I'm going to put a little piece of tape on here just to hold that into place, like so. Twisting this around right in here. Make sure y'all can see that. And I'm going to carry it up over my left side now and back around to that center, and I'm just going to snip this out of my way. I used to do a lot of crewel and embroidery, so I have tons of this embroidery floss. And I have brought that underneath, and now I'm going to tie this into a knot. Trying to do this nice and large so you can see it, and bring that together, and you can see how that has formed a V, and it's V, an upside down V here. And I'm going to show you the card. I haven't even showed you the card yet. This is what I'm working on right here. So at this point, I'm going to sponge the sides of this. I'm using the Blushing Bride and my new sponge, everybody. Just move this to the side. And I have this on a scrap of paper. I always like to keep my work surface nice and clean. I'm kind of fussy about that. I don't like working in a mess. And this is the right side, but you do this however you choose. This is just the way I'm doing it. And I'm working from the top to the bottom and then along the base here. And I'm just ever so slightly going up on the left side. And there we go. Now I am ready to Put my button on. Remember, this year I'm working more with buttons. This dental floss is 6 strands. So this is going to be hard to get through those buttons. So what I'm doing is, if you've watched my buttons and bows, I am working that into that glue, and I want to really get that in there good because I've got to get these 6 strands to stick together. Repeat that on the opposite side. Keep your cap on this glue and it'll stay nice and creamy for you. If you leave that cap off, it dries it out. Now twirl that in my fingers. You want to really kind of squeeze those fibers together so that it kind of forms like a needle. And set that aside and let it dry. But for convenience sake, I already have another one that I've done that too, same thing. And my glue is dry. Now I'm just going to thread that through. You'll see how easy that is once that glue dries. And this button is from our new Occasional Mini, and it's called Twitter Pated. That is a name. I even looked that up in the dictionary to see what the meaning of that word was. It's not even in there. I'm not sure what it means. So bring that down, tie that. Tie a bow. I want to show you these cute buttons as soon as I get this tied. And your loop is nice and large. Put your thumb on there to hold that tightly and just work that in on each side till you get a nice little bow. And then we'll trim off these edges. But look how adorable these buttons are, Twitter pated. I had to practice saying that just for y'all. But aren't these adorable? I really, really liked them. The colors are going to be easy to work with. I'm going to be working with the stamp set Rue de Fleur. I hope I didn't kill that for all my French viewers. But isn't this a beautiful border? I'm doing this on Whisper Whiteness, tone on tone. Our card size is 8.5 by 5.5, and I have it right here at my fold. But so that you are able to view this with ease, I'm doing this on a scrap of paper. So this is 5.5, which is the length of our card. We want to find the center point, which would be 2 3/4, and I'm going to mark that really dark so y'all can see that. And that's what I'm aiming for. And this is the stamp set. Isn't this beautiful? This is made almost like a puzzle. This will join into the opposite side, and this piece here kind of caves in. I'm working with the Versamark, which is great for embossing. I'm going to be using my white embossing powder. So let me tell you how to line this up. Let me get this lined up really good first. And now, this has a center, and that's what I'm aiming for. I want to get that so that the edge of my rubber is right at the edge of my cardstock, and my mark from my pen is right in the center. Next, I will use my Whisper White. My white embossing powder, and I've put mine into a container. I do a lot of embossing. I love embossing. You're going to see this is a scrap of paper. There's something on the opposite side. When I'm embossing, I always take my fingers and make sure that all of the powder is off of there because we don't want that showing once we emboss. Remember, heat your heating tool up. Just like you're turning on an oven, you want to heat it up ever so slightly before you begin to put it onto your powder. I want you to see how easy it is to see it begin to turn. It'll begin to shine. Can you see that? You want to do this center portion. The other two sides you'll heat at the same time. Okay, cool. That's done. Now, I don't need that anymore, so I'll put this more in the center so y'all can see it a little bit better. Take my Versamark. And this side has the curve that comes out, so I want this to be on the side that the there's an indentation here. So I'll line that up, lining it up with the base, just like I showed you a moment ago. Now repeat that on the opposite side, but this time I'm going to swirl my stamp around so that this goes in. And put my powder. I like to cover up my ink pad before I put the powder. I don't want any of that getting on my pad. And I should have used my embossing buddy. That would have helped. Okay, heat set it. And you can see just how easy it is to join that up. Not a whole lot of effort to that, was it? And that's just what I've done here. Next, I am going to stamp on a scrap of, this is a scrap of watercolor paper, and I'm doing it on watercolor paper because I want the strength of that paper, and I'm using the Cherry Cobbler ink. And this is from the P.S. I Love You. Oh, and I love that set. This is Love You. And I am stamping that right onto that watercolor paper. Set that aside for just a second. And next, this is also from the P.S. I Love You, the little hearts. And I'm going to angle across my larger heart. I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm going to trim this out. Anytime you're trimming, look at the shape of your paper and just try to follow that shape. So I'm curving around. I'm going to get rid of this excess here. And I'm going around and coming in, and it's better to go way out than to go way in. When you've got a loop like this, curve out. And now begin to turn that. It's also better to turn your paper as you cut than to turn your scissors. And I'm going to have this so that it comes with a little handle because my design of where I'm putting this onto my heart. Now you can go back and reshape these looped areas to make sure you have them just the way you want them, like so. Okay, and that will go on to my small heart, and it's going to be glued right in like that. But what I did is I wanted it to kind of stand up, so I just took my fingernail and I just kind of bent it like so. And I'm going to use the all-purpose glue. In fact, I could just go ahead and do it. I always feel like y'all don't want to see me do the monotonous little things. You'd rather see the more detailed. It's not that I don't want to show you. And just put it on that lower edge. Pull that over slightly. And I'm putting my finger like so. And you see how that's curving up. If you were working with regular cardstock, you wouldn't have the stability that you're going to have with this watercolor paper. I love watercolor paper. Okay, and I've trimmed these off. Now we're ready to start assembling our card. So first of all, let's get the pattern for how we're going to do this. I'm going to have this kind of curving this way, this laid out like this, and I also I took another scrap of paper. I told you I used my scraps, and I stamped the white onto this white paper, and then I sponged it with the Blushing Bride, and I've trimmed around that, and that's going to go right here. And I'll adhere that on with the multi-purpose glue. So let me just do that and get this started gluing it down, and then we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, I've got this all adhered on, and I want you to see the angle that I have this. This is close to my edge, but I have a little bit of a lip up here, and I've adhered this little piece here. And now with the Blushing Bride, and that's what I went around this with before I trimmed it out. I am going to really work these edges. This is going to super accent this. And now I am ready to put my smaller heart on. And look how cute that love looks. I have put 2 dimensionals on the lower portion to just kind of lift that up. And I adhered my heart on with the multi-purpose glue, and I'll follow through with it on this side. If y'all have any questions at all about making this card, don't hesitate to email me. Let me know what your questions are. I'd be happy to help you. Okay, I've taken those off, so now we're ready to position this on. I want this little peak to come close to where this element is here. And I'm angling this the opposite way. And there we have it. Okay, what do you think? I want to show you what I did with the negatives from this. Remember when I cut these out? See these negatives? Well, this one I didn't have quite as close to that. But what I did was I cut around those negatives, and I made another card just by trimming around those, the 2 of them. And then I took some of that floss and wrapped it around and put a verse and have another card. Waste not, want not, right? Click on the link below this video. It'll take you right to my website, and there you'll see a list of all the materials used in creating this card. Also, to make a purchase, click Shop Now at the right top. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you've learned something new.